Hi, I'm Riley,
And I'm Katie, and welcome to Ideal Podcast,
where we talk about the ideal and not so ideal moments going from girlhood to womanhood. Hey, welcome back.
Hi guys, we are back with another video, and to be completely honest, we recorded this
Weeks ago.
very long time ago. We were having issues with our mini mics, our beloved mini mics.
So take two.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be better this way. We've had to do this a couple of times, and I feel like every single time we re-record it, the podcast is a lot more deep and great.
Yeah. Let's do drink rating.
Yeah. Mine will be quick because we reviewed this last episode or 2 episodes ago, I think. Sour Blueberry by United Sodas. This is the best sparkling drink flavor ever. It tastes like sweet cotton candy in the best way possible, and it's blue, which I don't know if that's concerning or not, but I think it's fun.
I'm just getting flashbacks of a few days ago when I bought a Sour Blueberry United Sodas for myself, and I had put it in a cup of ice, but I had left it in the freezer for a couple minutes because I wasn't ready to drink it yet. And so I took my cup out, condensation, I poured my drink. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so pumped for this. As soon as I pick up my cup, spilled 3/4 of my drink all over my desk. It took me probably 30 minutes to clean because it was everywhere.
And what's funny is that you literally cleaned off your entire table right before. So you had to clean it all up again.
Yeah.
Anyways. Fun. We're going to make some kind of like blog post and rate all of our favorite sodas.
It's going to be
this
up
is
there.
Probably number 1 or number 2.
Yeah. Today I am trying a new one. It's called Ora Bora. Such a fun name. It is herbal sparkling water. So it's not really a soda. It is peppermint watermelon. 0 sugar, 0 calories. It's got like 4 ingredients. So. Oh. That's really minty.
I feel like that's our reaction to everything. We just go, oh.
Yeah, it deserves an O. It's definitely very minty if you like that.
But it tastes like real mint. You know, like it feels like you just threw some mint leaves in there and it's marinated for a little bit.
I'm going to give fizziness an 8, flavor 6.5.
I'd give it a little more.
Yeah?
I feel like
I was just expecting more sweet after that. It has no sweetness whatsoever besides just the natural flavors of it.
Yeah. I just feel like compared to other sparkling waters like LaCroix and all of that, this tastes so real. And LaCroix and everything else just tastes very artificial.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this conversation that we're going to have because it's something that we all can learn from. And I feel like it's something that you and I are still navigating and trying to figure out as we go, especially being college students.
Yeah. So today we're talking about how to build a healthy social life and what that means in our lives.
Yeah.
Basically, I guess, should we start with the definition of what we see as a healthy social life?
Yeah. That's my cue. I was like, well, who's going?
Cueing you in.
To start off, obviously, when we hear the word social, we think of other people, whether that's friendships or just like people that we encounter. But I think in order to set yourself up for success in your social life, you have to really figure out yourself and your own internal processes.
In terms of just trying to check yourself and, asking yourself, am I being good just in a general sense? Like, am I good internally, and how do I view myself in my friendships? And part of that is, do you have insecurities or just internal issues that you haven't acknowledged, and so those are projecting onto your relationships? I feel like a lot of problems that arise in relationships stem from what's going on inside.
Obviously, one thing that we do need to acknowledge is that we all have insecurities. We all have internal issues that we need to deal with. And that doesn't mean that we completely close ourselves off to the potential of friendships and or just like a social life in general. Like, don't lock yourself away if you are not, if you're insecure. Like, we're all insecure, you know? But I think the main thing is, are you open to people, and are you willing to open up and share about your struggles to other people who you trust? So I feel like if you're able to do that, you're really setting yourself up for a good social life.
And I mean, people feel the energy and the atmosphere that you create, and your friends will often start mirroring you as well. Like in your friend groups, you start to mirror each other.
Oh,
And
this is so good.
we go into that, I think, a little bit more later in this episode. But as long as we all have insecurities, so as long as you are addressing those and not letting those kind of control your behavior, I think that's super important.
Yeah, and I could talk about this forever, how who we are impacts those around us. I think even if you might not be noticing, you are mimicking certain things that your friends are doing. And I feel like I've seen that in my life, and I've seen that in other people's lives, good and bad. And so that's why it really matters why you surround yourself with good people, which obviously we go into later. But yeah.
Yeah, the next thing that we have is just having genuine friendships. That's a huge part in having a healthy social life. And that comes with just being able to navigate those friendships on different scales, whether it's a small group, a large group. And I think one thing too is thinking about the different sizes of friend groups, and is that larger group of friends of yours as close with you as your smaller group of friends, and just kind of looking at the differences between the dynamics of your friends.
Yeah. And with friendships comes brown. Blah.
Comes
I want to say boundaries. Okay. Well, with friendships, you have to learn to have boundaries. And I think I was reading this book, it's literally called Boundaries. And one thing they were saying is that the boundaries that we have, a lot of them come from literally when we were children because of how we were raised. And sometimes you have to unlearn certain boundaries and learn other boundaries.
I think too is just kind of on a different note of, are you uncomfortable in a general sense of social situations? Um, and can you navigate those on your own? And this is something that we all have to learn to do eventually, because you go to school, you have to find a job, and if you're just not social and you have those social skills, it's going to be much harder for you to navigate those situations. And the only way to truly master that is just to kind of putting yourself out there.
I feel like everything that you wrote, I'm saying, and everything I said,
I know.
you're saying.
I noticed that too. I was like, wait, what am I reading?
Why am I having such a hard time talking about this? But I 100% agree with that, because I feel like for the longest time I was very uncomfortable in social settings.
Same.
And it took practice, and it took me having to go to these social events and parties and all of that to learn how to be sane when I'm surrounded by people, and not freak out, and be able to have conversations and all of that. So now that we've kind of defined what a healthy social life looks like for us, this is how we've been trying to build that healthy social life. And one of them is to be the first person to reach out. Some of the best friends that I have started from me kind of stepping out and introducing myself, or doing something like that. And one thing that I've tried to implement into my lifestyle is just to challenge myself to introduce myself to someone new every once in a while. Then usually it happens like at the beginning of the semester. But I just want to start doing that, even like I'm standing in line at a coffee shop. I want to just start having conversations with someone next to me, And it's like, I think our human instinct is to not do that. But I think when there is an opportunity to have a conversation, I think the other person might be scared too and feels the exact same way as you. And so if you just step out and start that conversation, you never know what it could lead to. It might be a friendship that could start. It might be a really cool opportunity. Like maybe that person has a connection that will, open a door for you or something like that. So there's just a lot that can happen from putting yourself out there and introducing yourself or starting conversations.
In our era of technology, especially, I even notice myself doing this, is if I'm in a social situation, whether I'm in line getting lunch or just somewhere in public, I will just look at my phone.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people do that as well. And so, even just being mindful of, maybe I don't get on my phone this time when I'm in line. Maybe like I try to start a conversation with somebody, or I say like the girl's shirt in front of me. um, yeah, so I think just maybe trying to disconnect from technology more.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because literally this morning I was listening to a podcast. It's this YouTuber that I've been watching for ages. Her name is Margot Lee. I started watching her when she was in college, and now she lives in New York and just has the coolest lifestyle. And she started a podcast, and she was talking about how she went on a solo trip to England
Mm.
and how she challenged herself to go out to dinner by herself and just sit there and read a book or journal and not be on your phone. And the things that she was mentioning were very eye opening and just like a good reminder that like we need to normalize not being on our phone to distract ourselves or to make ourselves feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm. I would consider myself an extroverted introvert. I used to be super, super shy, very moody. I'm still a little bit on the moody side, but less introverted. Um, and so in terms of extroverted introverts, I think those people are great one on one and in small group settings, but not so great in big settings. And I just wanted to say that it's taken me a lot of practice and experience to feel comfortable being outside of my comfort zone, even though my parents will still say that I'm shy to this day, but my friends say otherwise.
Well, the reason why we even wanted to bring up the idea of introverts and extroverts is that both types of people react differently in social settings. Mm-hmm. And like, even I was just talking about like introducing yourself and all of that. And surprise, I'm an introvert, and introducing myself to people is terrifying, but it's something that we just have to learn to do because I don't know, there's just so much more opportunity when we aren't afraid to speak up. Mm-hmm. And so Riley was saying that she's obviously an extroverted introvert. I am a full-on introvert. I think I am like 90% introvert.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the biggest challenges for me, but also throughout the years I've learned to accept that I'm an introvert. And I think one thing I want to say to whoever's listening to this, and if you are an introvert, it's okay. Like, you are normal. You are, like, nothing's wrong with you. Yeah. You just react and feel differently in social settings and all of that. So I think that's just something introverts need to hear because growing up, oftentimes they feel very like something is wrong with me. Why am I so scared to speak up?
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to say is I talk about this class all the time because it was just such a eye-opening experience. But I took this class called Service Leadership, and a lot of the things that we talk about in there is similar to like OB, where it's like psychological, like how can I become a better leader, blah blah blah. And we ended up talking about introverts and extroverts, and our professor made us take like the test that tells you if you're an introvert and extrovert. And then she asked like, raise your hand if you're an extrovert, raise your hand if you're an introvert. And it was so eye-opening to see how many introverts there actually are, because oftentimes you feel very alone. Mm-hmm. But being able to see like, hey, I'm not the only one in this, and like I'm not the only one that stays more quiet. And I think one thing I did want to say is that we kind of had this conversation about introverts and extroverts in the class, and they were saying that oftentimes extroverts talk too much and don't give space for introverts to talk. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, introverts don't talk enough which means extroverts will do it for them. So we're both at fault, and we all need to learn to find a good balance.
Being an extroverted introvert is a weird combination of not speaking enough but speaking too much sometimes. And we'll get more in depth on this in a little bit, but being an overshare versus undershare as well.
It's huge.
And it's just so interesting as well because I'm taking sociology right now and I can't even remember what it's called, which is not good. But
I'm surprised you're bringing up this class because you really don't like it.
I know, I really don't like it. It's my 8 a.m. freshman level class that just bores me out of my mind. But there's this concept about how people act and talk differently depending on what group setting that they're in, which I think is so interesting because I don't talk as much with my parents. But then if I'm with like my best friends, I talk too much. Or if it's a stranger, sometimes I just talk too much.
For me, it's if I'm with people who I'm close with, I will talk my mouth away, if that's even a phrase. But when I'm with someone who I just met, I am silent.
Yeah.
And they probably think I don't like them, which I will talk about later too.
Another way to create and build a healthy social life is thinking about you are who you hang out with. I think that's a very underrated thing because sometimes the key to success is surrounding yourself with like-minded people. You know, do they share the same values? Do they share the same goals and ambitions? They don't have to be the same goals that you have, but to be equally as ambitious and, you know, you respect each other's drive, essentially. Do they bring you down or lift you up? Do they bring other people down? Are they happy for you when you succeed? So I think just a general rule of if your friends are building you up and, you know, not the type of people that kind of don't share your same lifestyle and they kind of just bring you down, I think is really important.
Yeah. It's funny because we're watching The Bachelor right now and we are seeing so many red flags in some of the girls and just how they approach friendships and it just looks so toxic and unhealthy.
It has me yelling at the TV. This last episode that we just watched,
literally this morning,
literally yelling at the TV.
Yeah. It's frustrating. But everyone's true character always comes out, and I am a firm believer of
Even
that.
on national television.
Yeah.
You can't hide it.
Another thing that can really help you to create a healthy social life is to recognize people's intentions. A lot of the times, and I feel like you and I both have encountered this before, where people use you. And that's just reality. That's normal. And like, there's no need to lose your mind about it or go crazy about it. But it's just important to recognize a person's intention when you are choosing to either pursue a friendship or relationship or not.
Yeah, I think a good question to ask. Are they interested in me because they want something from me or because they actually are interested in having some kind of relationship with me?
I guess one thing I do want to mention is that, like, obviously see the good in people and don't be super like, oh my gosh, is that person using me? Is that person using me? You know, like, see the good in people, but if there are multiple situations where a person's red flags come up, that should be a sign to maybe not pursue that friendship.
Another thing that I think is important is just knowing that you will see some of your closest friendships naturally fall apart, and that's 100% okay, and it's not necessarily anyone's fault. It's just life works in weird ways. You might eventually reconcile with someone or never speak again. We always go on different paths. Sometimes your friend goes on the same path as you, and sometimes you don't, and that's completely fine.
Learning to be cool about like the natural currents of life and the way that friendships just naturally grow or fade away. Like, we just really need to normalize that. And I think I've had experiences like this where I held on to friendships too much and then I ended up getting hurt because I would just want something from a friendship that was not going to happen. And so just accepting the fact that life is a constant up and down, and if some friendships will fade away, but it's okay because who knows, you might reconcile again or never speak.
Mm-hmm. Kind of on a similar note, it's hard sometimes making the decision to part ways with a friendship, and you just have to remember to do what's best for you moving forward. And not every relationship is meant to last forever. And some of our best learned lessons come from relationships that don't last forever and they have an ending.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. You learn from the moments that might have been the most painful.
Yeah, exactly.
That's deep.
Another really important point, which everyone seems to talk about, but I feel like it still doesn't happen enough, even sometimes for me.
It's definitely easier said
than
than done.
Exactly. Is just communicating. The part where I get really frustrated, whether it's with relationships and dating or just friendships, is playing games. Like, I don't want to text them twice in a row. I feel like calling them would be uncomfortable, or just feeling like you don't want to ask them to hang out first. And so it just frustrates me because if you feel like spending time with someone, just say it. Like, if you want to double text, just do it.
Yeah.
It's not that deep. Just communicate.
Yeah.
You will do more harm than good by not communicating how you feel in the long term, because it creates confusion, misunderstanding. If you have something on your mind, just say it. It shouldn't be that challenging, I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it can feel difficult to reach out to someone, but if you've had a connection with that person, it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's very shocking to still encounter people who are not good at communicating. Like, I feel like at our age, we've had all of this experience, like all of my high school years, all of my college years. Like, I still find that they simply can't even respond to text messages or little things like that. And it's like, this is just like a common, simple skill that you need to master and like learn to do.
And even if you have a habit of not reaching out to people or just not putting yourself out there, I don't think that's an excuse. Like, don't cause a situation or make someone feel a certain way because you are incapable. Your daytime texts give introvert. So I will die on this hill that Katie texts like a completely different person in the morning or during the day versus at night, because I'll get these texts during the day. So professional. It's like she doesn't know who I am. We're kind of just chatting about work. Like, it's not anything more than an acquaintance relationship. And it's like, I can't do that today, period. But then at night, it's like emojis and exclamation points and no punctuation.
You're not the only person that's told me this before, and I don't understand why. I think maybe during the day I just have more energy and I just put more energy into my text messages. But then at night I'm just like, I'm in a silly, goofy mood.
It feels, because I get scared sometimes, because punctuation to me gives passive aggressiveness, because I only use punctuation when I'm mad. My boyfriend only uses punctuation when he's mad. So when I see you giving punctuation, I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do?
With communication, there is a fine line, because yes, communicate, especially with people closest to you, but when it comes to daily life, you can't overshare. And you can't undershare.
I'm a bit of an oversharer.
A bit?
What's so funny is I can be very private, but then at the same time, I have talked to complete strangers about the most traumatizing things that have happened in my life the same day I met them. I don't know how it's happened. It's created, blessings for sure. Have there been some regrets? Absolutely. But I think being an overshare is a blessing and a curse, and I have to definitely watch myself. I think that dynamic is just interesting of feeling comfortable with the stranger and just kind of sharing a bond, and then you never speak again, but then you see them and you're like,
A little too
I
much
know a
about
little
you.
too much about you. And but it's like a common respect almost where you see each other, hey, how are you? How's it going? Give a little hug,
Yeah.
say what's up. I mean, yeah, but definitely don't overshare and definitely don't share your dreams and ideas with people that you aren't really close to. That's kind of my rule of thumb. I'm very vulnerable and open about my experiences, and I will have no problem talking about that with people. But when it comes to ambitions, I would say reel those bad boys in.
Yeah.
Don't talk about that.
Reel those bad boys in. It's so funny because I feel like ever since we started like sharing a room and living together, I've realized how different we are because Riley is an overshare and I am the complete opposite. I don't think I've ever I mean there were probably moments where I did feel like I overshared, but for the most part I always undershare and that's not any better because undersharing can often make people feel like you don't like them and you are not interested in them, but I guess that's just like the introvert in me that's like holding
Mm-hmm.
myself back, you know? And I feel like even though my face doesn't say like don't talk to me, I feel like my actions sometimes do, and it's just because I I don't
Mm-hmm.
share a lot.
Knowing you on a very personal level, I don't get that vibe from you, but I do feel like it's taken me a long time to fully get to know you. And I feel like there are still some things that I'm like, I wonder about X. And I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. And like I wonder if this is like trauma that I have that I need to deal with or if this is just like normal.
Probably both.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
And obviously, with communicating comes listening. And one thing I want to say is that there are very few good listeners in this world. I
Yeah.
feel like most people can talk and talk and talk, but not a lot of people can listen and like listen as in really hear you out and be there for you to share your feelings and
Mm-hmm.
make you feel like you are sharing it to a safe person.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of listeners get taken advantage of and
Mm-hmm.
no one ever asks them, you know, how are you doing? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like even though I like to share and talk with my close friends, I do often feel like I listen more. And I've experienced moments where I would hang out with someone that I haven't seen in a long time and the entire time they would just
Mm.
talk, you know, and
Yeah.
I'd kind of leave feeling blah, you know,
Yeah.
like you don't feel leaving good about like after that. And I think that just leads me to say that we have to learn to ask questions and genuinely be interested in people's lives because that makes you a good friend. Like it even helps you with networking and like when you're surrounded by people who we haven't met before,
Uh-huh.
learning to be interested in their life when you know nothing about them is a whole other skill that I'm still learning to master.
Mm-hmm. And kind of going off of that as well as you don't always have to be the center of attention in a group when it comes to listening, because I think it's a popular thing, even not even just for introverts, but just a trait in general is you're having a conversation with someone, but you're not listening to what they're saying because you're thinking about what you want to say next. So you're not even being super present in that conversation. And so, just really intentionally thinking about what they're saying, not interrupting them. Interrupting is one of my biggest pet peeves. My family used to interrupt me all the time when I was young. And even just like I think this is popular in high school and college. I guess it can happen more in adulthood, but making sarcastic comments, and I'm sarcastic to a certain degree, but I mean making unnecessary jokes in a group setting
Mm-hmm.
to put yourself higher than someone else. I think that's popular as well in group settings, whether you're in a classroom or just your friend group. I think that that's something to note as well. And if you are someone who does this, I think just asking yourself, why aren't I being present when I talk to people? Why do I feel like I need to be higher than someone else in a group or just the center of attention?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like learning to read the room,
Yeah.
you know,
Social
that's
cues, baby.
huge. And it could save you from a lot of embarrassing
Mm-hmm.
and uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
And I think just the conclusion of all of this is relationships and a healthy social life is hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take some uncomfortable moments of putting yourself out there, but also some incredible things come out of it. You come out with all these amazing friendships and connections and just another level of satisfaction, I'd say.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a constant trial and error, and we have to be willing to do that to get
Mm-hmm.
to a good, healthy social life.
Yeah, and making mistakes and learning as you go is safe when you are doing it with the person you trust and love, and vice versa.
Love that.
That was your line. I stole it from you.
Was
I
it?
definitely did not write that. That's why I was like, what is this?
Oh, maybe. That's okay. You could read my lines any day.
Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.